Move over, Anthony Precourt. There's a new most hated man among MLS fans. And his name is Don Garber. Wait. Really? The guy that's in charge of the most successful soccer league this country has ever seen, a league which had 12 teams and was on the brink of extinction when he took over in 1999, to now having 30 teams and not just surviving, but thriving? That's who everyone is referencing with these hashtag Garber out tweets? Obviously, there's a lot more to this conversation than just the amount of teams that have joined MLS over the last 20 plus seasons. And while I have gone on record defending his performance as MLS Commissioner, I'm also not going to just stand here and pretend like I've absolutely agreed with every decision Don Garber has made. So given the recent events that have unfolded this offseason, what with the announcement of the new spending rule changes, or lack thereof, and the news of MLS attempting to pull out of the US Open Cup, which caused an uproar with everyone, I think now is the time to have a real discussion about the Don. The positives and the negatives. And the first thing that needs to be said is that Don Garber is not a soccer guy. You don't got to take my word for it. This is straight from his mouth. While giving a keynote speech at Columbia University earlier this year, Garber explained how he was appointed MLS Commissioner while working in the NFL. I was at an NFL owners meeting in Atlanta in 1998, and Robert Kraft came over to me and said, "What do you know about soccer?" I said, "Absolutely nothing. I hate soccer."
What?
How does someone who hated soccer fill such a big role? Well, the reality is that at the time, MLS didn't need a soccer-minded charge. They needed a business-minded charge. The initial wave of excitement from the inaugural 1996 season was gone. Despite Chicago and Miami expansion sides coming in 1998, the league was crumbling fast. And with the amount of money MLS was losing year after year, it was only a matter of time before the league went under. Changes needed to be made. Some of them were just cosmetic. Others were just obvious rule changes, like no more countdown clock and getting rid of the shootout, which originally they did that and then replaced it with a short overtime period to try and find a winner, but that didn't last long either. Now, a fresh coat of paint and some rule changes were nice, but to be honest, that wasn't fixing the overall core issues this league was facing. MLS needed more than that. Insert Soccer United Marketing. If you don't know what Soccer United Marketing is, I'm just going to read this straight from the Wikipedia. SUM manages all sponsorship, licensing, and advertising sales for MLS and other premier soccer properties in North America, including U.S. Soccer and the Mexico national team. So the positives of this is that SUM was able to purchase their broadcasting rights for the 02 and 06 World Cups and have all the games aired on ESPN, which, if you're not aware, was a pretty big platform at the time. Which then ESPN and SUM were able to split the revenue. Hey, sounds like a pretty sweet deal. The problem is that not everyone was exactly thrilled that MLS and US Soccer were tied together like this, as it created an obvious conflict of interest. The new NASL filed an antitrust lawsuit against USSF and MLS for anti-competitive practices when US Soccer said they didn't fit the requirements to remain a Division II league. I mean, I know MLS and US Soccer just kind of came up with these requirements out of thin air, but NASL had 8 teams in its last season, so I don't really fully understand their argument and how they were going to be able to win it. But maybe that's why I'm not a lawyer. While many despise SUM, and while I understand why, I also can't really deny that it has played a huge role in increasing both MLS and US Soccer's visibility in this country. As did the influx of soccer-specific stadiums, which was one of Don Garber's main objectives early on in his tenure. When most MLS teams played in cavernous NFL stadiums, many of whom had to pay rent just to be allowed to play, it wasn't exactly ideal. Since he's been in charge, over the course of the last 25 years, owners have invested $8 billion on soccer facilities. Yeah, I know, we're dealing with a lot of rich people here, but that $8 billion didn't just appear out of thin air. Decisions like signing a $700 million Adidas deal to outfit all the teams. I know we all complain and want more variety in the jerseys, but cash is king, and let's face it, that was kind of a good deal. You also got the media rights deals, the latest one from Apple for MLS Season Pass going for $2.5 billion. You also got expansion fees going up, expansion fees that owners are willing to pay. From a business standpoint, MLS is kind of crushing it. I mean, look at the team evaluations. They're only going up year after year. So why are so many fans mad at Don Garber then? Well, I think it comes back to the very first point that I made. Don Garber is not a soccer guy. Don Garber is a stone cold businessman. There are things that seem blatantly obvious that would improve the level of play of MLS. Things like raising the salary cap, loosening roster restrictions, etc. With the world's most popular player coming into MLS and more eyeballs looking at your product than ever, surely now is the time to let owners spend more and not be tied down to wonky rules, right? Surely now is the time to unleash the true potential of Major League Soccer, right? Apparently not. Now, I am not saying cancel the salary cap. The salary cap does create a level of parity, which I think is good. I mean, call me crazy, but I like that MLS doesn't have the same team winning 10 years in a row. But it's also pretty easy to understand the formula that spending more money to buy better players will result in better soccer. The trade-off of having a salary cap to keep parity is ultimately sacrificing the overall product for the top teams that would be able to and would want to spend the money. But do the owners or Don Garber really care about that? I mean, is it going to be worth the money? I and many other fans think so, but it's not up to us. It's up to the owners. And ask yourself this: what would Don Garber rather have? A league that produces the best soccer possible, or a league that makes the most amount of money possible? If you ever wonder why a decision is made in MLS, it can pretty much always be answered with that word. Why have such a long, needlessly complicated playoffs? Money. Why attempt to pull out of the US Open Cup, the oldest soccer tournament in this country? Not enough money. Why insist on having all-star games against foreign opponents who dunk on the MLS squad and make the league look terrible? Money. Yes, I'll reiterate, from a business standpoint, I think MLS is doing great. And yes, money is very important. But I think at times, not all the time, it's very clear that Don Garber and the owners, they're playing the long game with this league. But at times, Don Garber and the owners can be a little short-sighted and be too focused on the money, if that makes sense. Like, I just cannot get over not increasing the spending limits and easing up on the roster restrictions. I think it is time to rip the training wheels off. You could still have a salary cap and have teams play better soccer. In 1999, when the league was struggling, to say the least, MLS absolutely needed someone like Don Garber. And up to this point, he has been fantastic for MLS as a whole. But how much bigger can MLS get? Seriously, how many more teams can you add? MLS has the Apple TV deal. They, along with Liga MX, made up the Leagues Cup. Eventually, the only way to go up is going to be to improve the level of play on the field so MLS can compete on the same stage as the best teams in the world. And I do think it's a fair question to ask: is Don Garber the right guy to lead the charge? I'll be honest, guys, and I hate to break it to you, but I don't think Don Garber's leaving anytime soon. I think he's going to be here a minute. I mean, he's already been here for 20 plus years. This isn't just some side gig anymore. Like, this is his legacy now. So all those hashtag Garber out tweets, you can keep sending them, but I don't think he or the owners really give a shit. And speaking of those tweets, okay, I get that a lot of you might not be happy with the state of MLS right now. A lot of you might demand better now. But I can't help but giggle at some of the people that are tweeting Garber out. Like, okay, if you're a Columbus Crew fan, if you're a San Jose Earthquakes fan, I get it. You guys get a pass because, like, the things that Don Garber has said or done, or at least tried to do, he has royally screwed over both of your teams. I get it. But if you're like an LAFC fan or an Austin FC fan and you're saying this, do you realize that you probably wouldn't even have a team without Don Garber? I mean, he is the one that ultimately, approves these expansion teams. And like, if you had someone else in his position, like a real soccer guy, there's no way that the league would have expanded past 20 teams, at least not this fast. So in conclusion, love him or hate him, Don Garber has built up the MLS brand to what it is today. So you gotta kind of give him some props for that. Now, today, is he truly the best option for producing the best soccer on the field?